Color me surprised, as for once, Konami didn't actually screw us over in the TCG. Most of you know I have been talking about the price to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively, card accessibility, as well as things like short printing and rarity bumping ad nauseum on this channel over the past month. While Bonfire being $100 was a death blow to many wallets of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelists out there, one thing I kept repeating in my videos was, keep in mind, you'll need to buy Snake Eye Populous, now renamed Poplar for the TCG, and Promethean Princess if you really want to take advantage of those bonfires and play your fire deck, whether that be Rescue Ace, Fire Kings, or Snake Eye, to its fullest potential. I fully expected Konami to do what they traditionally do on the TCG side of things, and full-on rarity bump the two biggest chase cards of the set to the highest rarity of Secret Rare. But in a surprise to many, including myself, when the set was spoiled by Yu-Gi-Tubers a few days ago, neither card was revealed to be a secret rare, but instead were both printed as ultras. I will admit, I was dead wrong in this instance and pleasantly surprised because, again, this is pretty much the opposite of what Konami has been known to do for the TCG side of things. Usually, not only do we get highly desired cards rarity bumped to secret rare, but in addition, Konami will short print highly desired cards inside sets like they did recently with Triple Tactics Thrust in Maze of Millennia. Snake Eye Poplar and Promethean Princess being ultra rare rather than secret may not seem like the biggest deal, as ultra rares in recent memory like Kashtira Fenrir have reached $60 per copy at their peak. However, it's still a far cry from the $100 or more per copy that cards like Wanted, SP Little Knights, and Bonfire have fetched recently, mainly because ultra rares in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are just easier to pull than secrets from core booster sets. In fact, on average, you get about double the amount of ultras as you do with secret rares from Yu-Gi-Oh! Boxes, so in theory, this should put a cap on what we would expect to pay for these specific cards, which in my opinion is really important with Promethean Princess specifically, as she'll also see play in decks like Volcanics, Infernoids, and Salamandrate. While I personally thought the biggest chase cards in Phantom Nightmare being printed in Ultra as opposed to Secret Rare was a positive and opened the door for more players to be able to afford their fire decks and strategies, there were some in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community who saw it from a different perspective. Jeff Jones made posts on Twitter about Phantom Nightmare and the openings and how he disagreed with certain cards being certain rarities. He predicted that the boxes would only be worth about $45 and directly compared it to Duelist Nexus. He went on to say that when sets are bad, those set singles that are really good tend to be higher in price than they should be. This is because less of a set is opened and less cards are put into circulation. If demand for Popular and Princess is incredibly high and enough product is not getting open to supply that demand, the cards' prices will increase. While I believe Jeff's point is mainly criticizing Konami for having mediocre core booster sets like Blazing Vortex, where there's only a couple of good chase cards, as opposed to something like Age of Overlord, which sold magnificently, so much so to the point that it sold out and had tons of good support in chase cards, this is an interesting take and one that could beg the question, should the best cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Core booster sets always get the highest rarity? You can disregard the idea of Konami always releasing core booster sets that are great, because I don't think that that's realistic in any TCG, whether it be Yu-Gi-Oh!, Magic, Pokemon, or whatever. There's always going to be some trash tier level set that's coming out right around the corner. But something that can be consistent and theoretically could add value to even mediocre sets is having the best competitive cards printed in the more desired rarities of Secret and Ultra Rare. Now obviously there are some serious pros and cons of doing this, and I can see both sides of the argument. On one side, it would make new competitive archetypes much more expensive, as many, if not all, of their key cards would likely be printed in high rarity. For those who are not in the know, think Lightsworn of 2008 and how almost everything in the archetype that you wanted to play, from Lila, Judgment Dragon, Honest, Solar Recharge, Celestia, and later Charge of the Light Brigade, were all either printed as secret rare or an ultra rare. This made Lightsworn extremely expensive on release, and usually with newer archetypes you want to play multiple copies of key cards if you want to properly build the deck. On the other side of the pendulum, it could ironically help with card prices, as in theory there would be more expected value when buying booster boxes and players would likely be more willing to purchase sealed product. If more players buy sealed product, then as Jeff alluded to, the supply increases to catch up with the demand and the prices either stabilize or go down. I'm sure many of us have at one point or another opened their entry packs at a YCS or regionals only to pull a $1 ultra or secret rare and think to themselves, geez, this sucks. Well, being more selective with the higher rarity slots would likely eliminate this, as all the slots would be filled with in-demand cards that people actually want. Let's look at Duelist Nexus, a set that I really like, but one that constantly gets dunked on as quote-unquote bad just because of its price point. Despite giving us Chimera, Unchained, Infernoble, and pushing Purely and Rescue Ace to significantly new heights from a competitive standpoint, it's pretty common to hear people bash the set even though it had such a profound impact on the metagame. However, what if you applied the best card, best rarity practice to Dune? For instance, what if cards like Emergency, Rescue Ace Preventer, and Unchained Soul of Shavara were all secret or ultra rare rather than the crappy Tistina cards that no one wants? For those who don't love this set, it probably doesn't change their mind completely, but it would probably give this set a few more good chase cards and more reasons to commit to buying a box. Would this make it more expensive for those who wanted to play Unchained or Rescue Ace? Absolutely, because those cards wouldn't be 10-cent commons anymore and would likely be closer to, I don't know, maybe something like $8 to $15 a piece. But the trade-off is that you would get more valuable cards to pull from your boxes and from your entry packs, at least in theory. I think this is an instance where the juice could be worth the squeeze, especially considering most core sets always have like 2 bad ultra rares that no one really wants, and those slots could easily be filled with better or more competitively focused cards, and Konami could then in turn move those average cards or the TCG exclusive cards to maybe the super rare slots. Generally speaking, I've never had a problem with quote-unquote worthless or bad Yu-Gi-Oh sets that aren't worth anything, because I personally don't buy sealed product with a return on investment mindset. However, vendors and stores pretty much have to have this mentality, and I know that they absolutely hate it when a set drops below what they paid because they instantly lose money. This is why I think that this is actually a pretty nuanced discussion, and that the solution isn't as simple as rarity bump all the chase cards to secret rare, like what Konami usually does, or print everything good and common so that it's as cheap as possible. Because depending on whether you're a duelist like myself or a vendor/OTS store that sells products and needs to make a profit to stay in business, that could definitely determine your answer. Again, personally, I'm glad that Poplar and Promethean Princess weren't fully rarity bumped to secret rare, thus forcing new $100 meta cards on the players, because I don't think that that's a very good way to run a business. I also think that there'd be less complaining about all of this, expected value stuff out of booster boxes and bad sets if Konami did a better job with picking the right cards for the high rarity spots. Stop spending all of these slots on these terrible TCG exclusive archetypes like Warrock and Tistina that end up taking a bunch of ultra and secret slots when, let's be real, much better cards deserve those slots. But what do you think the solution is? Because while I'm perfectly fine having a bunch of cheap cards and people not getting priced out of what they play, I go on social media sites like Twitter and I constantly hear people complaining about, oh, this set sucks because there's only 2 good cards to pull and everything else is worthless, etc, etc. And I know that it's just not realistic for every core set to be insanely good like a GOV. So you let me know in the comment section what you think the solution is, or how you feel about this entire thing. Also, were you shocked that Populous, or Poplar, now it's called in the TCG, and Promethean Princess were not secrets, and did it change your opinion, or did it change your plans as far as like if you were going to pick those cards up? Because now it's much more likely that they'll be closer to like $40 to $50 cards rather than the $100 cards that maybe people like myself expected. Anyways, thank you guys for watching as always.